Coco. Okay, Cesar, are you with us? He's somewhere, I'm
Sure.
sure. Yeah, perfect. So, to introduce Cesar, he did his master's with Vinny, who's also here, working on crazy bioacoustics of bees and buzz pollination, not only in Melastomataceae, but a wider set of range of species. Cesar is generally very passionate about bioacoustics, has even acquired his own funding with a really cool project trying to determine or like see whether based on the sounds that animals produce when visiting flowers, whether you could use that for identifying them. And yeah, I was lucky enough to win Cesar over to join a big joint pollination project on Melastomataceae with Vinny and me. So that's what Cesar will be doing soon. And yeah, today he's going to tell us about buzz pollination and bioacoustics of his master's work, I think, the Rhynchanthera work. So Cesar, you can go ahead and share your screen and get started.
Okay. Let's see. Showing to you.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you, Agnes, for the presentation, for introducing. So I did my master's and my undergrad in Brazil, and currently I'm doing the PhD with Vinny, and I'm joining Agnes' group at Vienna as well. And today I'm gonna talk about a little bit what we did in my master's, Vinny and I, when we try to explore a little bit about vibrating bees, acoustic and their diversity, and also relate this with some aspects of pollination in a population of Rhynchanthera grandiflora. So probably most of you already know a lot of things about melostomes, so I will skip this part to tell about the diversity of the flowers and the species. But one thing that I'm really interested is about the buzz pollination, that even if there is some species that are pollinated by other animals, the majority of the melastome species are pollinated by bees. And in this kind of pollination, some species of bees, they perform this very stereotypical behavior where they grab the anthers, they disentangle the wings, and they remove this strong and very quick vibration from their flight muscles. In that way, they can collect pollen grains from the anthers. And one thing that's very cool is when they are doing this behavior, they produce a sound like a buzzing that's called sonication or flower buzzes or just buzz that we can hear, and then we can record and study this kind of sounds. So as a lot of as all of that all types of sounds, these buzzes, they have some features that we can explore and study. These are the mainly features of the sounds produced by bees. The first one is the most simpler one, is the duration. So we can have a flower buzz that is short, really short, and you some species also have flower buzzes that are longer. So here we already have some difference between one feature of the flower buzzes. The other feature that we can think about is the amplitude. Basically, one way to think about the amplitudes is the strength of the oscillation that bee promotes in the flower and in the air. So for us, we will perceive as a volume. So you can hear a buzz that is really loud, and you can also hear a buzz that is really soft. And this feature is really cool because It's the one that we are really related to the size of the bee's body. So you can uh, infer the size of the bees just looking at these some features. And it's also really related to the amount of pollen grains that are collected by the bees. And the last one is the frequency, that is basically how many times the thorax of the bees oscillated per second. So for us, we will perceive frequency as pitch. So there are some bees that vibrate the flowers and produce higher pitches. And also there is bees that produce lower pitches. I don't know if you guys can perceive the differences between the both. I will play both simultaneously. I think it's more easy to compare. So in one interesting thing also it's that the bees not only produce sound when they are vibrating the flowers, but they also produce sound in other types of behaviors, like when they are flying. And these sounds they differ between them. And here we can see like two spectrograms. There is like a plot where we can see these three sound features. In the x-axis, we can see the time. In the y-axis, we can see the frequency. Here in the colors, we can see the amplitude. So one thing that we can see is the flight buzzes, they are simpler than the floral buzzes. And the floral buzzes, they have really more information. They feel the frequency spectra stronger than the flight buzzes. And not only the sounds differ between behaviors, but it seems that the sounds differ between the species. One work that we did before was to try to identify these bee species just by looking at the sounds. And we can see that here we build like an AI to identify the species, but different species, they produce different types of sounds, buzzing, floral buzzing, and flight buzzing. And we can perceive this at the field, but when we build an AI to do this, we can reach like 95% of accuracy in identifying the species just by looking at the sound. So it seems that the bees, they have like a signature at each species produce when they are buzzing or when they are flying. And considering all of this, one thing that we really wanted to look at it, if that we can compare the bee sounds to the bee diversity. Because when we are studying pollination, one thing that we pretty much every time need to do is to see what are the visitors that are visiting our flower. And most of the times in ecological studies, we also need to measurement the diversity of the communities of the visitors. And also we try to correlate to relate this to some aspects of plant reproduction. So we use it a population of Rhynchanthera grandiflora as a model. It's a really, really pretty flower. And we studied this like 2 years ago in September in a high altitudinal land here in Brazil called Campo Rupestre. And what we did first was to do focal observations, the traditional one, that one that you need to sit on the sun and stay there for hours, look at the species that visit your flower. And with these observations, with this data, we calculate an diversity index. But simultaneously to these focal observations, we also record each flower that we were observing. So we have like a pair system to collect data. And with these sound recordings, we measure an acoustic index that I will try to explain further. And in the end, we also collect the flowers and count the pollen grains that remains on each stamens. So this was the most common species that visit our flower. There was more than this, but this was the most common ones. For our first result, we did a lot of we measured a lot of acoustic index since in the literature they already did this with other groups like birds and frogs and fishes. It's really common to try to measure diversity uh, with indexes in these other groups. But this first index here, that's called acoustic diversity index, was the best one. He explained 34% of the actual diversity of bees, and it is an index that it's really similar to the Shannon index because to calculate the Shannon indexes, you need to build a matrix with each flower or each species of flower and each species of bees in their column. And you need to write down the abundance of each species. To calculate this acoustic diversity index, instead of bees, you have frequency bands instead of abundances of individuals from each species. You have like a power, like an amplitude. So basically, the index calculate the diversity on this space of sounds, and it's a really cool results because in this way we can measurement the diversity without being on the field. If you want to compare the diversity of visitors from one flower to another or one from one species to another, you can just use sounds for do this. And the other result that we we saw was this one. It's a really tricky plot, but I will dissecate this for be better to understand. But the first thing that we see here is that the duration, that it's like our measurements from the number of bees that visit the flowers. We did not use the numbers because duration is a continuous variable, so it's better to model. But it's an intuitive thing to think that more visits, more pollen grains comes out from the flower. But when we look at this scenario here, where there are few visits, like there are limitation in pollinators, the diversity of bees that are visiting doesn't matter. Don't have a relation, an effect of the pollen release when we have fewer visits. But when you look in a scenario that have a lot of bees visiting your flower, the best scenario is when you have a low diversity, acoustic diversity. That's a really intriguing result because you can think, oh, you are saying that the diversity is bad for the plant, but it's we need to remember that in this study we only study one population, so this population it's better for the population to have one kind of bees than a lot of kind of bees. So probably this is like similar to the optimum pollinators. Uh, so when you have a lot of bees, probably there is one species or two species, like the bigger ones, that is more uh, effective to release pollen than the others. And so it's also an interesting result that is kind of showing that there is like a niche of buzzing, like a vibrational space where the optimum is with a lot of visits, but just one kind of visits. And considering all of these take-home messages, I wanted to say that it is possible to identify bees by their sounds. It's something that is possible. it is also possible to estimate the bee diversity just by looking at the sounds. And it seems to be like an optimal vibrational niche, something like that, there where and the male performance of plants is better. So our next step, we are thinking by when because you can predict the the assemblage of the pollinators that visit some flowers, looking at the morphology, we are thinking if you can predict the vibration space that visits one flower when you look at the morphology. And you don't have any results yet. We were starting to collect the next month. But yeah, now we want to compare the network of bee pollinated melastomes, and if the module on the network it is explained by morphology of the flowers and the acoustic space. So that's it. I wanted to thank you all for listening. If there is any questions, I'm here.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Cesar. This time without dancing sounds, but bee sounds. Wonderful. Are there any questions? Just checking the chat. Well, Fabian, go ahead.
Oh, I feel bad. I'm always the one who asks a question. So, Cesar, I mean, I understand that there is one bee that it has an optimum, but if and that it might be better to have that one be the one that comes all the time. But if there is that bee is absent, either seasonally or locally, and you still can get pollinated, even if it is not efficiently by other bees, I still think is good for the plant to have a diversity of pollinators. So while it can be you might have an optimum, that's not discounting the 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 effect of the other things. And the other thing that I think is that the bee doesn't care to pollinate. So the bee is coming to gather the pollen. The bee is not there to provide a service. It does provide a service sort of as a because the plant is
Byproduct.
co-opting it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that yeah, I see your point, but I think that for the plant, a pollinator is a pollinator, unless there were too many of the bad pollinators, and then the whole system collapses because it's not efficient enough.
Yeah, and another thing that also this plot don't show, it's the female function. We tried to look at it, but unfortunately there was like a beetle, like this curculionids that ate all the fruits. But maybe this is one thing that is true for the male function, and it's not true for the female
Mhm.
function. And also maybe when you look at the community level, the result will be different.
I've been wondering your acoustic diversity index range from 1.5 to 1.58.
Yeah,
So that is maybe it is a large range. Intuitively, it's a small range. So probably including more species would make that clearer. Or if you have sites where the diversity range of variance is higher, I don't know how much variance you really had in the sort of acoustic buzzings here.
yeah, it's not so much variancy. Yeah,
But it's cool that a
but
pattern is picked up, although it's a small variance. So
yeah,
that's
yeah,
really
it's
cool.
small.
Klaus had a few questions. Don't you want to ask them directly, Klaus? Is he still here?
Uh, I enjoyed very much your talk, Cesar. And my
Thank
question is,
you.
how do the sound features depend on the distance between the mic and the flower? So particular amplitude seems to be very dependent on the distance between the microphone and the flower.
Yeah, yeah, that's a thing that we need to consider because when you use microphones just by hand or putting we try to all the times make the distance the same, but there's wind that move the flower, there's something like this. For this particular field work, when I was processing the audio, I tried to like cancel the amplitude variation because I could not consider the amplitude. I could just consider the frequency, uh, the, the the average frequency distribution in each species, but not the whole amplitude of the sound. I don't
Okay.
think that if I can. So I need before when was processing, I standardized the total amount of uh, amplitude to the same one. So I equalized the amplitude because I didn't have this feature for the species,
Hmm.
but I maintain the difference in amplitude for each band.
Okay. Would it make sense to use two mics? So when you have one microphone in 10 centimeter and another microphone in 20 centimeter distance, you get
Yeah,
another
true.
feature.
Yeah. It's a good way to do. What we are thinking now, it's like not to record on the plant, but like build like a stick with a known measurements.
Okay.
And we are putting a flower in one way and a flower in the other side. No, one mic in the one side and the flower in the other side, and then we have like this always the same distance.
Okay.
But another way to do it's like Agnes and Ben are starting to do, that you like put a plant behind the flower. It's not a
Okay.
microphone, but they catch the
Piezo.
oscillation. Yeah,
Hmm.
like a piece. So that's way, but you need to take account for the amplitude.
Okay. And another
But
question is, when the bees are of similar size, do they produce similar sound features?
that's a tricky one. They produce different. One thing that we know that the amplitude is really correlated with size.
Yeah.
Like bigger bees always we produce bigger like louder and stronger buzzes. But the frequency we don't know. It seems to not be a relation to size.
Mm.
But at the same time, it seems to be like a signature for species that is not
Okay.
size, but it's something else.
But there are bee species which are very similar, in which the individuals are very similar in size. For example, honeybees, they have all the workers are all identical size, but in bumblebees, the size can be quite variable between the workers.
Yeah, yes. That's one thing that when we in the undergrad, when we built this AI to identify the bees, the Bombus was the worst classified because it's the one that has more variation in size and architecture. So it's a thing to consider. This one that are social, maybe the sound is not so good to identify or to relate
Except
something.
honeybees, they have identical
Yeah, no,
size. Also,
honeybees is the exception for everything.
Donald, do you want to go ahead and ask your question directly?
Thank you. I was just wondering if it's easy to tell buzzing from a bee approaching a flower or leaving a flower, excuse me, apart from buzzing for the actual pollen collection.
Yes, it's like really easy.
Oh, good.
Hearing and when you plot this spectrogram is like clearly, yeah.
Is that because they pause when they land, or is it because it's a different frequency, or?
The frequency and also they change the frequency and also the structure. Like when you look at the plot, the spectrogram, the buzz is really simpler. They have fewer bands, and when the bee started to buzzing, the frequency goes up, and the frequency spectrum goes like filled by frequency bands. It's really clear to see.
Do you think that's because they're not engaging their wings, or they're using their flight muscles separately, or maybe that's too much of a question?
No, we don't know yet. We really want to see what is happening, but we think that yeah, when you think about flight, the bees is now in a free system. There's nothing uh, between her body and the air. When the bees are vibrating the flower, there is the flower component, but it's also because the wings are disentangled. Maybe the vibration is passed through the rest of the body, the exoskeleton. You don't know which things are doing this, but yeah, probably it's the bee's body and the flower on the system.
Thank you.
I have another question. Is the some kind of variation also caused by the flower? Maybe a difference between empty anthers and anthers which are still full of pollen, or anthers when in humid conditions, or anthers when it's dry and the flowers are not so turgescent.
I don't know, Klaus. I don't know yet, but it's really interesting. Yeah, because maybe this there's difference in sounds, and maybe there's difference in poly release too, and also it's something that we don't know. And also we wanted to see if they're the same bee species visiting different plant species. It will be different. That's the thing that only look at the fundamental frequency, you cannot see difference. But maybe when you like do a algorithm with machine learning,
Okay.
the algorithm will tell, oh, this is a different plant, the same species or something like that.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?